Sovereigns, Monica Grace from cardreadingqueen.com here. This content is going to be how to feel safe during a national or global crisis. And really, we're not able to make you feel completely safe, but we are really talking about how you can feel safer than you possibly currently feel. And so the way we're going to go about this is looking at it through the lens of healing. And I do want to say that I'm currently recording this during the COVID-19 global pandemic. So I'm going to probably make some references specifically to that, but I do believe that this is going to be relevant in the future when we get through this pandemic, as I am confident that we will. So let's get started. First, I want to let you know how you can get and stay connected to Card Reading Queen and to me, Monica Grace. This is how you get free content and updates from me and my company. You can go to facebook.com/cardreadingqueen, cardreadingqueen.com/YouTube, instagram.com/cardreadingqueen, twitter.com/Monica Grace CRQ, pinterest.com/cardreadingqueen, dailytwinsoul.tumblr.com, and linkedin.com/company/cardreadingqueen. Additionally, we sometimes mention freebies in our content, so you can find all of those freebies at cardreadingqueen.com/freebies. And when you go to that page, it has a list of all the freebies that we offer across all of our content. And all you have to do is sign up for that. Of course, these are free materials. You will enter your email address and then you will be sent the download that you requested. So let's get into it. How to feel safer during a national or global crisis. And this is going to be from a spiritual perspective, but I do want to say that we are going to respect the 3D reality of what is actually happening. However, this is if you want to shift your energy, shift your mindset, shift your understanding of this, see how this is affecting you on your twin soul journey or your ascension journey, and really work through some of those woundings or some of those negative stories that may be causing you a lack of peace right now. So this is all about bringing more peace and more joy to your life, even when we are in crisis. So the first thing I wanted to say about this is that this is a cycle of collective healing. So what exactly does that mean? So on the twin soul journey or on the ascension journey, we have moments of crisis that we call dark nights of the soul, or we may call them tower moments. And so right now we are healing the same exact wounds that we would heal on the twin soul journey, but we're just healing them at a collective level. And that collective level, it really just means that many people are healing the same wounding at the same time. If you've already been doing a lot of healing and you've been on this journey for a while, or if you've just been accelerating through your healing, or if you had another circumstance that caused you to do healing around this. So one example is if you have had like a health crisis before, so like a chronic illness or cancer or stroke or whatever else it might be, you may have healed a lot of this collective wounding already. So that's for the health piece of this. There's also the economy and that piece of this. But if you've had financial crisis in the past, then you again may have healed that financial piece of it. So there's a lot going on at once in this particular pandemic for COVID-19. But really what you need to understand is we're just healing the same exact wounding that we have been healing on the twin soul journey, but there's like a lot of people doing it at once, a lot of people potentially awakening, or just a lot of people shifting their perspective as well. So you may have healed these wounds from a different perspective before. You may have also healed these wounds just from the same perspective, but you were doing it on a personal level. And if so, definitely don't look for yourself in these stories or in these reactions. It could be that you've already cleared this for yourself, and that's perfectly fine. as we go through this video, it may be that you see other people in the video or in this content and see like someone else's wounding and maybe have more compassion for them. It could also be that you see your own wounding and you have more compassion for yourself, and you also learn to shift out of that wounding and into the healing aspects of that. So these are the two ways that you can really use this video, this content for your healing journey. All right, so this content is going to be based on my core wound wheel. Here's what it looks like if you're watching this via video. It's basically a wheel with the 6 core wounds, and then it has the 6 core healings that go along with those. And if you want to get this, you can go to cardreadingqueen.com/freebies and you can find this visual there. There's actually a PDF and it kind of goes through the 6 core wounds and explains the core wound wheel more. For the purpose of this video, we are going to focus on the core wound of control and specifically on the system and society manifestation of it, which on the core wound wheel, I call this dependency. The flip side of that, the flip side of control is surrender. And then the flip side of dependency on system and society is interconnectedness on system and society. So if you wanted to shift from distorted to divine, you would shift from dependency to interconnectedness in your thinking. And I will break this down in more detail throughout this content. So I wanted to also add, there's no shame in having wounding. I know some people feel, they hear about their wounding and they feel just bad about it, or they feel like they're wrong or whatever else. I'm going to talk about my own wounding in this content, so you'll see my example. But in my opinion, I think wounding is great in many ways, because when you realize you have wounding, it's really that you've brought the subconscious to the conscious. And that feels good because that subconscious was driving your narrative already. So it's like when you bring the subconscious to the conscious, you have the opportunity to heal it, and then you are not driven by that distorted pattern in your life anymore. And that for me feels great. For some people, especially if you're kind of stuck in like a blame loop, blaming yourself, blaming other people, that can, or the shame loop as well. There's a couple loops that you may be stuck in that it doesn't feel good. It's totally fine. Just, maybe this video isn't for you. I think if it's triggering you, you should click away, just to keep your vibration high, and come back to it if it becomes useful to you in the future, or maybe it's not useful to you, and that's totally fine. You are fully in charge of your own twin soul journey, your own healing journey, your own ascension journey. So only take what resonates for you. All right, so we're going to talk specifically about the first core wound that we're healing, and this is a wounding around control. And so a global pandemic, for pretty obvious reasons, is going to threaten our core wounding around control, because we are not fully in control of how this disease is spreading through our countries, through the globe. We're not in control of how it's affecting our economy. We're not in control of what our various governments do, depending on where you are in the world. You may disagree with your government. You may disagree with your community. You may even disagree with your family, like your spouse or your partner or people that you live with. Maybe someone you live with isn't taking this very seriously and you are. These are all things that really can shake the foundation of your, really it's an illusion of control. So you thought that you had control in these areas and now you don't. Another example might be, if you lose assets in the stock market, or you had to shut down your business. So maybe you thought or had this plan of like, I'm in control of my finances. I get to control like how my business operates. I get to control how I invest my money. And then something like this happens and there are losses across the board, and thus you are set back in a financial plan. So that would be another way that you thought you had control and you're now seeing that control was an illusion. All right, so again, we're going to look at control, and we're going to talk about how you can heal these specific threads of control around system and society. So what's really going on with the control piece is that we desire safety and security. And so this desire, when it goes awry, it creates wounding around control. So again, you may have felt very safe in the world before COVID-19 came along, or before this crisis that you're in came along. And now you're realizing that the things you thought were safe, the things you knew to be consistent and that you could depend on, those have been kind of pulled out from underneath you. Control is a core wounding, and it's really, it centers around a desire to be like God, or to be God, your higher power, the universe, whatever your creator is, basically. So if you recognize a higher power, it's your desire to be that higher power, or to be like that higher power. So when you break it down into society and system wounding, it's the wounding of dependency. And dependency is a distorted wounding, while you can shift to the divine healing of interconnectedness. All right, so there are 3 ways that people, as large groups of people, respond to a fear around dependency on one another, or dependency on their financial systems, their governments, their healthcare systems, whatever it may be. The first is arrogance. I know better than them. So this is kind of like a know-it-all energy. The second is calculation. And this one kind of goes 2 different ways. So it's really saying, calculation is really saying like, I know that this system is rigged. And then what you're calculating is it rigged against me? Or is it rigged in a way that I can game this system? And then the third way is disassociation. So this is, I'm not like them. This doesn't apply to me. I'm better than them, whatever it may be. And so we'll go through these in turn. So the first is arrogance. And for arrogance, we want to shift to perspective. So let me give you these 2 energies. So the energy of arrogance is you have a strong opinion about what to do, even though it's a complex and nuanced situation. You may be a know-it-all about it. You're trying to convince others of your opinion or of your plan. You're experiencing kind of like a high and mighty about like just being right, knowing what you're, knowing something better than other people, having more expertise. You may even be obsessively watching news reports or doing research on this to try to better understand the problem, to develop more expertise around it. And you're probably focusing heavily on facts and data, rationality, logic. Wanting people to be rational and logical. So I'm going to give you some examples. The first one is me. I am the best example of this right now. And when COVID-19 hit, I was a bit ahead of the curve on understanding it here in my country, which is the United States. So a lot of people were not talking about it yet. I was talking about it quite a bit back in February and really looking into like trying to predict what was going to happen here in the US. And so by the time that people figured out what was happening, which was about mid-March, I had already been talking about it for a while and really trying to convince people that it was happening, trying to trying to kind of push my own views about what needed to be done forward, trying to share information about it. And it was kind of like it was just an energy of like trying to control the people around me. So the wound there, so some of the other examples before I get to that. So it's really anybody, like, it can also be if you have strong positions on divisive topics like politics, vaccinations, all sorts of religion, like just anything that's a more divisive topic, or like a more academic or academics topic, or just anything controversial. If you have a strong position on that and you're trying to convince others of that, it's really the same energy. And so in a pandemic, if you have strong opinions politically and you're sharing those, then you're probably also sharing, information about this. So the wounding is believing that there's a right answer, which you believe, like, it's basically that you believe there's a right answer to this situation, and whoever finds that answer is going to be safe. And so you're trying to create or really recreate security, hold on to security and safety through just kind of like research and data and logic, rationality, convincing, and trying to like find and source information. So you kind of believe that whoever has the most information is going to be the safest. So in order to shift out of this, you have to shift into the energy of perspective. So this is really getting curious about aspects of the situation that you're missing. And this means really like releasing your own position on the situation. So as you release your position, you will then be more open-minded to hearing what others think about it, or understanding how others react to it. Seeing the value of the emotional piece as a predictor or a motivator, because we are all trying to work together during a pandemic, typically, or during a global crisis, you have to understand that the emotions are a big part of that. So a lot of times you're just kind of looking at the facts and like, you've got to wear masks, and this is what's coming, and here's the data on this. And you have to understand there's like an emotional impact to all this, and that many people are not going to be focused on the facts. Many people are not going to make decisions based on the facts. And if you leave out that emotional piece, then you're going to have a very hard time analyzing what's really happening and predicting what is truly the right answer. So it's almost like you think you have the right answer, but you've kind of left out the whole point, which is that people, like a large group of people, have to implement this answer, and there are varying degrees of success there. So you need to release your need or want to convince others of your position, and really just, it's okay to have a strong position, but I think whenever you're in the place of convincing, that's just a very obvious place of trying to control what others think about this. Allowing people to come to the truth in their own time. So it's very easy to label people as idiots, or like, why did they do that, or be questioning them. But really it's that people come into truth in their own timing for whatever reason. And this is true of any truth. You can't really convince someone of the truth. And in fact, you shouldn't be trying to convince someone of the truth, because truth does not require convincing. If something is true, then you don't need to convince people of it. Interestingly enough, it's the truth, right? And I just want to say, this is very relevant to the twin soul journey, because sometimes you're trying to convince your twin soul that they are your twin soul, for example. And it's like, you don't need to do that, because if it's the truth, they are going to come into that understanding on their own, because you can't ignore truth. You can maybe ignore it for a time, but you can't separate yourself from truth. So I know I've tried to do that, or I've had the experience of trying to convince people of things that are true already, when like it's like yeah, it's not how truth works, right? So another thing is to express yourself however you want. You don't need to buy into other people's opinions of what you're doing. So, if you want to share information that you have, it's okay to express that. You don't need to apologize for what you're interested in. And as long as you're not like trying to get people to engage with it, it's okay to put it out there and to know that your work is valuable. You don't need to lose confidence in that. And then allow your work to reach the right people. Allow your message to reach the right people. And don't be trying to get like everyone to understand your message. Just share your message from a place of, this is what you want to share. And so the healing is shifting into an analysis phase, because really, instead of convincing other people of what's going on, you really just want to analyze the data for yourself, and make decisions for you based on the data. And so if you can shift into like, hey, I'm not trying to control others around me. I'm just trying to analyze this data for myself. And then I may share my opinion and my findings, but I'm not going to share it from a place of convincing. I'm going to share it from a place of expression. And so that's kind of the shift there. As you shift to analysis, don't forget to include the emotional aspects of it as well. So the second one is calculation to responsibility. Let's talk about calculation first. So this one, again, this is the one where it's really like the system is rigged, is the idea behind this one. So the system or the society is rigged, and you're calculating, is this in my favor, or can I game this, or is it not in my favor? So you're going to experience a me versus them mentality. You believe that you're competing with others in the system or in the society for limited resources. So this is a scarcity mindset. You may be sizing up your enemy, even though, and so maybe that enemy is a COVID-19 virus, or maybe you see that enemy as other people. And a lot of people do, and you probably saw this during this pandemic as it was kind of shaking out. Creating massive separation, usually on class, race, politics, and so on. So this is like saying, when people are like, oh, China lied about this, or, Italy is handling this poorly, or whatever it might be. So you can see this at the country level. You can see it within the country being divisive. Like maybe, so my country, Republicans and Democrats are kind of always at each other's throats. Believing that, where we have a bailout in our country, and where does that money actually go? There's kind of this rich versus poor. So that's the class separation. But really, really buying into those separations is a big part of the calculation piece. And especially if you find yourself saying like, well, I'm poor, so this is going to hurt me. Or if you find yourself saying, I am this, and so I can actually get money back from this, or whatever it might be. But looking at ways that the system is rigged against you, or that you can rig the system against others. That's really what it comes down to. Blaming large groups of people for you getting what you consider the raw end of the deal. So again, in our country, a lot of this comes down to politics, as I'm sure it is in many other countries, where you believe that, I got the raw end of the deal and it's the Democrats' fault, or it's the Republicans' fault, or Here in this country, and China is also experiencing this. So China is saying that the U.S. It is like lying about their numbers, which we are vastly underestimating our numbers. The U.S. is saying that China is lying about it. So like the U.S. and China, for example, have a really they have really tense relations, and that's been the case for a while. But you even see this at the country level, where Chinese or even Chinese American people, really anyone who looks Asian, basically Asian Americans in the U.S., they're getting blamed in some cases for this situation, which is completely wrong. I just want to be clear. I do not support that at all. Those are hate crimes. And I don't know if that's happening in China for, maybe American expats or, so I don't know if that's happening in China, but I know that here in the U.S. there's a lot of this inter-country conflict, or not inter-country conflict. So some of the examples from this particular crisis, people in my country who are unemployed, definitely, or who have recently become unemployed, definitely feel like they're very angry about the situation. Preppers as well. So here in the U.S., we have people who are preppers, which means that they have like just tons of supplies, like months and possible years of supplies. They may even have a bunker. They may have a place to hide out. And they're basically, they're kind of in like apocalyptic mode, but it's basically this idea that like I protect my own and the rest of society can devolve into chaos, and like I'm fine because I'm a prepper. We also have price gougers here, speculators, all sorts of stuff here in the US. But this is all the kind of me versus them mentality. And the wound is really that you're looking at every problem in terms of who it hurts, who it hurts and who it benefits. You're always trying to be on one side or the other, specifically the winning side. So you're always trying to win. And it really comes from a place of scarcity and believing in scarce resources. So if you want to heal this, you can shift to responsibility. And this is a fairly simple exercise. How can you take personal responsibility and help others within the system? So you want to first look at yourself. Then you want to look at your family, your neighborhood, your community, your state, your country, and then for humanity. And so you can look at all these different levels and see like, where can you help? Where can you take responsibility? How can you help others within this system? And it really comes down to like, you are reintegrating yourself with the system. You are rejoining the system in many ways. Because all of these, and just to be clear, this wounding is separation from the system. The last wounding around arrogance was also separation from the system. The next wounding that I talk about around disassociation, also separation from the system. So all of this is just separation. The healing here is to release your competition and the scarcity mindset around resources and around survival. Let's talk about disassociation moving to relation. So the energy of disassociation is believing that no one knows anything or has any idea what might happen. This is typically not true. Typically, there's quite a bit of information out there, and there is the ability to predict or anticipate what's going to happen. So believing that nobody knows what happens is actually just, you're projecting something that you're projecting something onto other people, which is that you don't feel like you know what's going to happen and you are worried about that. So it's kind of like a fear. I mean, all of these are fear-based responses, or distorted responses, and then we shift them to the divine response. Another thing I've seen is believing that you can't do anything to help the situation. So maybe you're like, maybe you just believe like, okay, this is happening outside. Like, I'm just going to stay inside, watch Netflix. Like, I'm just going to chill. And you're not thinking, like, how could I help my community? Or, like, what could I do to be of service to this situation? What you're saying, again, it's a scarcity mindset of, like, kind of just not believing you have resources. And that includes internal resources like energy. Trying to separate yourself from the group, acting like you are an exception or above society, so like you don't have to follow the same rules, going against recommendations issued by authorities. I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of this in this crisis around social distancing. So lots of people not really social distancing in various parts of the world. I know here in the US, there's no national anything around social distancing. So in my country, at the time of this recording, the states are deciding, and even like some cities are deciding. So where I live is St. Louis, and my city has been on lockdown since the end of March, but my state has only recently declared a lockdown. So I've been on lockdown, but just outside my city, people really didn't have any guidance still. So using dark humor and memes that may be insensitive to others. So there's certainly nothing wrong with using humor to get through a challenging time. I'm not saying that, but like using it to the extent where it's just kind of unkind to other people and not really taking into account their feelings. And to be honest, I've certainly seen the memes. I've laughed at the memes. Like, I've even shared some of the memes. But even like the thing, like there was a meme I saw that was like your grandparents had to go off to war. You're being asked to sit at home and watch Netflix. Suck it up or something like that. Like that wasn't the exact wording, but it was something like that. And I thought it was reasonable. I didn't think it was unkind or anything. But I later heard a friend of mine who said that she was extremely hurt by this. And the reason is because she was going to have her wedding that she's been planning for years. To the love of her life, she was going to have that in a couple weeks after, when this situation kind of flared up here in the US, and it got canceled. Obviously, like she's not really having it. A lot of her vendors pulled out, a lot of her guests pulled out, and so she's, it's not going to happen basically. And she was understandably like pretty devastated and like, having a lot of trouble with it. And then she sees this meme that's like, oh, just deal with it, and it was hurtful to her. And of course, nobody, I looked at the meme. It didn't seem offensive to me. I'm sure nobody was trying to hurt her, but the reality of humor is that, and especially memes, is that they are poking fun at the situation, and they could be funny to some people. They are likely to hurt or offend somebody else. And that's just the reality. That's what dark humor is, right? So just keep that in mind as you share that, because even something that seems pretty benign can still be hurtful to others. Spiritual bypassing was a big one that I saw for this. Basically just, I saw a bunch of people who were like, I'm getting on a plane still because I only manifest good things in my life, or like whatever it was. I wanted to go do this, and I believe in staying positive, and so, I'm fine. And so that's spiritual bypassing. It really wasn't helpful. I had people I saw people in my feed getting on planes when the country was kind of shutting down. And, this isn't a judgment to anybody, but I think there were certainly some messages in my circles that were like, don't be negative. Like, any mention of this virus is negative. You want to focus on having good health, or you want to focus on the positive. And I think, personally, I think you have to look at the negative to then get to the solution. I don't think you can just get to the solution, and I do personally believe it's bypassing. So some examples, avoiding social distancing was the biggest one. Controlling what others can or can't say about the virus. I have experienced that personally, where people were like, you're being so negative, or like, why are you sharing this? Or I have boundaries around this space, and you can't say this in my space. Or let's vote, people who wanted to focus on the positive. I think the wound there is the deep fear of change and discomfort. It's wanting others to conform to the reality that you wish was there. And so you're really, you're disassociating from what is the reality, is what it comes down to. So you're not willing to look at the current reality. You're instead escaping from the reality to kind of go into your own illusion of reality. And I think there's a lot of discomfort about being present with the current and actual situation that is not great. Another way you could say this is like, you're unable to hold space for the current reality. Because if looking at the current reality wasn't triggering you, which a trigger is an upset, it's a fear, right? If it wasn't triggering you, then you wouldn't have an issue looking at it. So hopefully that makes sense. So you want to shift into the energy of relation. And relation is releasing your energetic charge around negative and positive, good and bad. I think those labels are kind of unhelpful in a crisis, because there's always going to be, it's hard to label, like, you can't label COVID-19 as a negative thing, because it's not wholly negative. Like, there are certainly negative aspects of it, but there are also positive aspects of it, and you really are not able to see the positive without first acknowledging the negative. So you have to acknowledge the whole of something, and then you can kind of look at both sides of it. So acknowledge the things you don't like about the system and society to see the positive and the opportunities. Decide how you want to engage or not engage. Divest or invest your energy consciously. So, I specifically around this, I did see a lot of people who were putting up boundaries around things. Like, I have a boundary about not looking at COVID-19. And, temporary boundary is okay, but I would say that the boundary is set by whether you divest your energy from something. It's not set by trying to control the people around you to not talk about something. And that, that is an energy of fear and control. If you're trying to use words or whatever it is to control people around you and what they say and what they do, what they share about, whatever. Holding space for others as everyone holds a piece of the truth. This is an interesting one, because you have to be willing to look at the current reality, but you need to understand it's kind of it's really similar to the 5, actually. So these are almost like two different ends of the spectrum. Like, one end wants to just talk about this incessantly. The other end wants to avoid it incessantly, but both are coming from a place of fear. And one end doesn't believe anyone but them holds the truth. The other end is not willing to look at the truth. So identify various groups affected, offer compassion to them, and ideally offer support to them if you can. So get clear on how you are called to serve during this time of crisis. I see a lot of people checking out, to be honest. So checking out in terms of like, and it's okay if you're not called to be a part of the solution. That's fine. But I think that we are all called in some way to be part of the solution, even if it's a small thing. So some people are called to talk about this. The way I'm usually called personally to respond to these things is through content. So I'll create like some free content around it to try to help people. It's an opportunity, I think, to serve and not, you need to figure out where your place is in this, to kind of, again, reintegrate yourself into this system or society. Notice when you're rejecting someone else's reality, and then be willing to question why. So why are you rejecting their truth? And typically, if you are rejecting their truth so strongly, it's because it's something about that truth. You feel the truth, but it's triggering an upset in you. So be willing to look at that and recognize, a potential area where you may want to shift to healing. So the healing for this the summary of it is to acknowledge your feelings, work through those feelings through healing rather than through avoidance. So the next steps, now that you have these 3 breakdowns, so if you are seeing others in your life responding in one of these 3 ways, feel free to send them this video to help them heal. This video can offer peace to people during this crisis. It may not be. It could also not offer peace to this person. So you have to use your own discernment to see if this video would be helpful to them or if it's just going to upset them. But you may be able to still walk them through that process through conversation. So if you're like, oh man, this person is hitting like all the points on this arrogance piece, help them shift to perspective. And you could say like, oh, have you considered how people feel as you are doing your research, like how they feel about this and how that's affecting their ability to respond to it. That could be a really simple way to kind of help that person shift energy. Also, if you're seeing yourself in this, then hopefully you have interest in healing, I'm assuming, and then you can use this to shift from distorted to divine. If it's useful to you, definitely try the reflection journaling practice at cardreadingqueen.com/freebies. And then you can leave a comment on this posting to share your upset, your story, or your results. And again, if you want to get into the core wound wheel, we covered a very, very tiny piece of it in this content. But if you want to get that, you can go to cardreadingqueen.com/freebies and you can dig deeper into this. And the gist of the wheel is that it's 6 core wounds, and then it breaks each of those wounds out into peer-to-peer, system and society, and authority. And then from there, it breaks it out even further. And the idea is that these core wounds, they are all some form of separation. As you fragment out each of these core wounds, then you're able to see all the different threads of how you may be in separation. So sometimes, we try to do healing and it feels very broad. So they'll be like, oh, I'm not, I feel like I'm unlovable, for example. And that may be true, but you might be like, but I've healed love so many times before. Like, I love myself. So why am I still experiencing that I'm unlovable? Well, this is where the core wound can come in to help you, because it breaks out that lovability into like so many scenarios. And then from there, you can kind of go through and be like, okay, I've healed this thread, but this is the thread that is still showing up in my reality. So anyway, that's how you can use this. Cardreadingqueen.com/freebies if you're interested, and this will explain everything on a much more detailed level. That's all for me. Thank you so much for consuming this content. I really appreciate you sticking around for this. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day.